So, we have another instance of someone needs to put the Red Army music on, like the Conquest, because we have it yet again in the UK this time. I'm sure you've seen the thumbnail already with the flags. But otherwise, just mentioning first, being the fact that this obviously relates into the Ethical Companies podcast that did with Carl ages ago. Collectivist ends without collectivist means, with all those rainbows, and the reasons as to why. Because if we go to the next one here, you can see, where this starts off, Paul Joseph Watson saying that, nothing really says oppressed and marginalized like your flag lining half a mile of a major capital city street. It certainly doesn't.
Once again, I forget who it was that said this. It might have been someone in the National Socialist Party or the socialists of the USSR and such. I think they say that the whole point of propaganda is not necessarily that you believe it, it's that you know it's BS and you can't say anything about it. It's naturally demoralizing to know that you can't point out, this doesn't look like oppression to me.
No, we want both of you to be lying and know you're lying and still raise the red flag. And in this case, the rainbow flag.
Also,
progress.
I know John mentioned it, but I can't remember. What does the black circle?
Intersex. I believe it's not black, it's purple. But
how does that relate to hermaphrodites?
It's the one. What is it? No, it's not even 1%. What am I talking about? It's like 0.01% of people which intersect.
Is
added in because more reasons.
Is the hole to represent men with holes where they shouldn't be? Is that what I'm saying here?
Maybe, but we'll go to the next one here because, of course, this is the biggest downgrade in history, as one person noted, and is definitely correct, as you can see, because we had the Jubilee, and of course, this whole country was plastered in British flags, which was,
we were celebrating fascism, obviously, so that needed to go.
So instead, we put up the new party flag instead of the country flag, which is certainly less fascist. I mean, you don't know if you've ever seen footage of 1930s Germany under the Nazis and the flags they put up.
Yes.
You never see the German flag. You always see the party flag, of course.
Well, yes, of course, because the state is God now.
Yeah, and we have the intersectional party flag there. But if we go to the next one, there's also this intersectionalists who are celebrating, as you can see with this meme here. It's like, no, British flag, disgusting. Whereas the party flag being risen over the entire street.
Is this person serious with this?
I believe so. But if they're not, there are plenty others who certainly are.
Yeah.
So if you go to the next one, you can see the BBC who are gloating about this. Now the Queen's Jubilee. This is a BBC journo who is very proud to make this post. Lots and lots of likes and retweets.
Fire them.
That's what you'd think. And then if we go to the next one, there's some other people just being quite happy that the flag's being brought down here, the footage of it happening. Goodbye Jubilee, hello London Pride, swapping over the flags. And as you can see, the footage there, which kind of just makes me sick to look at, because it's obviously a metaphor for what is happening in this country, which is the destruction of the original country and instead the replacement of it with the party, the regime as it gets called in the United States, or the cathedral, of course.
Well, it's being replaced with the ideology, because beyond all of this, it is just going back to the ideology, isn't it, really? This egalitarian idea.
Well, this intersectional idea. And if you go to the next one here, we can see the fact that the person responsible for this is apparently the Crown's estate, of all people, as well, which is just gross and disgusting. People who don't know who the Crown's estate is, it isn't run by the Queen directly. She doesn't deal with these matters, of course, or the royal family. It is instead the people who are being given the Crown's property and then have to manage that property, which is worth quite a lot, and a lot of the money goes back to the government.
Managers.
Yes, it is the managers.
Once again, proving that they do not have the same interests as those whose property they control.
No, they have been completely religiously captured by the faith of wokeism and intersectionality here, and have put up these flags as a symbol of domination. I don't know if you can click on it, John, because this is a much better photo for the situation, as you can see there. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's obviously just some kind of symbol of subjugation of the public at this point.
Yeah, you really have titled this one quite nicely, because this does look like conquest, because it is conquest in terms of the philosophical ideas that backed up this country and led us to the empire and led us to civil liberties and other such things. They've just been pulled back. They've been completely repealed and replaced with this.
Don't you know we'd all be speaking German? Well, apparently we'll all be speaking wokeism instead. I mean, that is the reality in which we live. And this all ties in quite nicely with something that happened online, which is groomers obsessed with making sure that you know that they are grooming. In this case, Sesame Street, of course, who are insistent on teaching kiddos that they must honour one thing.
Do they teach them math? No,
not maths.
Not anymore.
No, the highest virtue in life is to praise the party and their flag. And as you can see here, this is what does the pride flag mean? And they, of course, trying to put this towards kids, although I think this is more 30-year-old weirdos. But let's go through it. So we'll click on the first one there, which is just, as you can see, very creepy. But if you go to the next image, you can see the first colours. This is how they define the original design. Life, healing, sunlight, nature, serenity, spirit.
I'm pretty sure it was just a rainbow, but okay.
No, No, the homosexual toleration.
Oh, I forgot the purple isn't in the rainbow, so it can't have really been a rainbow where they just added an extra colour.
No, but I just the whole rhetoric around this, I hate it. I don't care whatever. Maybe this is what the original flag designer said, but it's just obvious bollocks. Which is what it stood for was homosexual toleration. Surely that was the idea. Instead,
I mean, if that's what the person said that it meant, I don't really care.
Yeah, but it also just is irrelevant to the point, which is well, then the obvious adjustments had to be made, of course, didn't they? Also, for bi people in the audience, basically just homos of another kind. Come on. I just the idea that like they don't fit in there. You know, the LGBT, it's all one thing. It's all one thing in my mind.
I'm sorry, also, John just pointed out, they just had to throw AIDS in there.
Yeah, this is the next bit, which is the black and brown stripes. The brown and black stripes were added to represent queer people of colour. I'm going to stop you there for a minute before we get to the AIDS. Why, obviously? Why the separate and equal chevrons?
Yeah, why separate them out? I mean, I understand that it's intersectional, so from their own perspective...
Need a little bit of segregation.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, that's what intersectionality is all about. That's how you intersect, by separating.
I mean, there's us queers, and then there are the black queers, which are our own little room, so we don't have to touch them, presumably.
I mean, they'll give us AIDS if we do, so...
That is the point made, which is it's also to represent AIDS. What? I just...
I mean...
Okay.
All right.
I suppose so. Sesame Street. That's what you had to say, didn't you? And if we go to the last bit here, of course, the Sesame Street's explanation of the rest of it, which is the white, pink, and light blue are for trans and non-binary individuals, which means that they're for zero sexualities. I mean, at least queer black people are still gay, presumably. Although they're not really gay, they're politically gay, of course. There is the definition there that, of course, if you're gay and don't believe in this, then you're not gay anymore.
The fact of the matter is, at this point, you can be politically gay without actually being gay at all, can't you?
Whereas if you're gay, you can also just not be part of the gay race anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that's where all the bisexuals that I see come into it. You're politically gay without actually having to do anything to prove that you're gay. You're married with children, but I swear I'm bisexual. I'm an ally, guys.
But then there's the trans and non-binary aspects. There's, again, zero sexualities, only mental states instead, which, good to know. I mean, this is how you end up with all kinds of neurodivergence being represented, although it already is. And then they say that there's the chevron, which signifies the importance of progress. I really hate this. I've had this discussion with Carl. I don't know what the solution is to this, but I really despise that these people have some kind of monopoly on the word progress, because this is obviously not progress of any certain kind that's, actually progressing us to the future. I mean, denying reality isn't progress.
No.
And that's what they're promoting.
And the side of science claiming that trans women are definitely women, also there's no such thing as a woman. So if I want to find a woman to ask what is a woman, logically speaking, I can't, because not being a woman myself, I never could find a woman to ask in the first place.
This isn't, society is not progressing once we're having these conversations.
No, this is nuts. This is making everything far too complicated.
I mean, I don't know what to do, but I think we need to redefine the word progress as some kind of, coming to terms with reality, which certainly the progressives do not.
I think we should start redefining progress in the same way that we refer to as, like, cancer progressing. It's a bad thing when cancer is progressing.
I still think progress is something useful that happens in society, but it's not what these people have defined it as.
But these people have, as you mentioned, co-opted the word. They've completely taken it. I mean, when we refer to these people... I'm
saying take it back. I'm not letting them have it.
No, when we refer to these people, I mean, we refer to them as progressives.
Progs.
Yeah, we refer to them as progs. Although, to be fair, being a fan of prog rock, it does kind of offend my sensibilities as well. But yeah, I think just abandon the word. Let's just have it mean progressing to cancer.
No, I think we need to take it back and redefine it as, actually becoming in terms with reality or something like that. But anyway, let's go to the next link here, in which we can also see the American intersectional police have now become a thing. We've had this in Europe, specifically the UK, as we've demonstrated many times before. And, we have speech crime in this country. So there is a reason for them to exist, which is to oppress us. I'm not joking, that is genuinely what they do. Whereas, checking your thinking in Harry Miller's case. Whereas the Americans don't, so I don't really get the point in this, but let's play the clip and have a look.
Hi, I'm Officer Lutz with the Columbus Division of Police. I'm your LGBTQIA+ liaison officer. And we're unveiling right now our Pride Cruiser for the month of June. I'm excited about this cruiser. It's great for representation.
I mean, there you have it. I mean, just we're going to ride around in this.
In this clown car that we purchased.
But it's obviously some kind of car of ideology, and they're going to enforce that ideology. Well,
it literally says report hate crime.
Yeah.
On the side of it.
But there's also the obvious point, why do they keep calling themselves officers? I mean, you remember it in companies, diversity officers. Or in this case, as he says, the LGBTQI officer, as he calls himself. I mean, it is really just, again, they're telling you what they are, which is agents of ideological force, and are going to enforce you into this. Or else. Or else what? Exactly. And if we go to the next one here, we can see that, what will this person be doing? Will he be arresting people who do anything wrong? No, he's going to be engaging in speech crime problems.
He's going to be arresting people who've literally, done nothing wrong.
Yeah. Whereas we can look at someone who did do something wrong, and happily, now we can report has got 10 years in jail. We can go back to the Portland, riots. The riots of peace, as they were caused. As you see here, this is a post from Andy. Portland Antifa member Malik Mohammed pleaded guilty in March to 14 state felonies. He's been sentenced to 10 years in a federal prison for possession of unregistered destructive devices during the Portland protests. That's bombs, in anyone else's rhetoric. If we go to the next one here, you may remember back in the day, as you can see here, I should have clipped this out, but I didn't. Oh well. But this is a clip of the Portland representatives at the time just saying, well, the problem is white supremacists. They're the ones who are doing all this rioting, and we need to, they've infiltrated our protests, and we need to shut them down. Malik Mohammed might have something else to say about whether or not he's a white nationalist. If we go to the next one, we also have, of course, you may remember, the media just asking questions. Many claim extremists are sparking protest violence. But which extremists? Could be the white nationalists, as they say in here. Which, no, it's not. Because if we go to the charge sheet, as we can see, this is the Department of Justice saying here, Indiana man, sentenced to 10 years. Malik Fard Mohammed being his full name. Any Indiana man was sentenced to federal prison today for repeatedly and intentionally jeopardizing the lives of police officers, destroying public property, and encouraging others to commit violence during the protests that occurred in Portland 2020. According to court documents, in the late summer of 2020, Mohammed traveled to Portland with his girlfriend from their home in Indianapolis to violently engage in area riots. On the 5th of September 2020, during a large civil disturbance in East Portland, demonstrators threw dangerous objects at police, including commercial-grade fireworks, Molotov cocktails, and bottles. Mohammed later pleaded guilty in Multnomah County Circuit Court to seriously burning a demonstrator by throwing a Molotov cocktail and providing baseball bats to members of the crowd.
That's what a saint.
That's what him and his girlfriend were up to. The girlfriend in question is not some innocent bystander either. She went to the shop and got all of that stuff for him, purposely, so they could do this.
Inspiring. Teamwork. When do these guys get the statues?
I don't know if she's a dhimmi and he's got a whole harem of these, because being Mohammed, I imagine he's
You never know.
But he decided to turn up and firebomb the police.
Well, I mean, if he had his harem, I suppose you can't really charge teenagers with these sorts of crimes, can you?
I think she's of age. But Mohammed, hopefully, he's not that Islamic. Mohammed's trip to Portland does not appear to be an isolated incident either. Investigators obtained evidence that he traveled to Louisville, Kentucky in August of 2020 to meet anti-government and anti-authority violent extremist groups to conduct firearms and tactical training. You wonder who those anti-government groups are? Guess. It's Antifa. Unfortunately, this is being written up, presumably in an environment in which you're not able to say that anymore in the Justice Department.
Antifa, as far as I'm concerned, are not an anti-government organisation. They are an anti-cultural organisation. They are anti-West.
They're anti this government.
Well,
as in the Western form of government.
The Western form of government, even when the Western form of government is literally spouting everything they want them to.
Yeah, I mean, every company, every government department, and still, well, get them Molotov cocktails, boys, as Mohammed did. Also, if we go to the next one here, of course, the imperial conquest of the intersectionalists rides high. As you can see, Pride Moments account here, which I found funny. Hopefully he does more of these. As you can see, the CIA engaging in it. But also, if we go to the next one, there's a lovely example just from some rando who's like, this is my local paper. The most marginalized people on earth, of course. I love it. I mean, it's everything, isn't it?
I would buy up all the copies of that and burn it in front of their offices.
I mean, you'd think so, but then you'd be charged with a crime in this country.
Apparently.
In America, we might get away with it as being legal speech still, hopefully. But if you go to the next one, you can see this is, of course, obviously an example of Havel's greengrocer that we've mentioned before, but we'll go over it again in case people haven't. This was the chap who was an anti-communist in the Czechoslovakian regime, and then, well, overthrew the country and became the president or prime minister, I forget which one. And he gave a great example of how to understand these weird signs that we have in the West in the same context he had, which is he mentions a greengrocer who put up a Workers of the World Unite sign. And he knows that the greengrocer isn't a communist. So he's like, well, why the hell are you doing that? And the greengrocer's like, well, you have to, don't you? Of course you do. And there's the point, which is that everyone has to engage in it, and also it's part of the system that everyone knows they're lying. It's not that they should agree or even believe in this stuff. They shouldn't believe in Molotov cocktail police in the name of diversity and inclusion.
But they have to toe the party line.
They have to show that they are part of the system and therefore uphold the system.
But even then, that doesn't work, because you see all of those businesses from the 2020 riots that put up signs literally saying, "Oh, we're on your side. We believe in everything you believe in." They still got torched.
They did plead for, not to be murdered, but too bad. I mean, the party will still come for you, of course.
Sucks to be them.
But it is true in Havel's example, which is that all of this is an effort in, subjugation, number one, but upholding the system as it is as well. I mean, you become part of the system if you engage in this. So that's what that local paper is doing, and therefore, that's what they are. And then if we go to the next one here, I thought we'd demonstrate there is some good news, though, which is that the regime may have a total control over, the public apparatus, but private conversations still are free, and private purchases on Amazon still are free. And if we scroll down here, there's a best-selling books list, and of course there's the usual average books about who cares, very many a thing. This one I found interesting.
Oh!
Number 17.
Bloody hell, really?
17th most popular book right now is that one.
The
which,
Bad Man.
We can't say, of course, but that's news.
That's not what I was expecting.
You don't see that on the media, do you? People talking about the fact that this came out of nowhere and has just shot to number 17. Interesting. Which is, of course, that the private conversations of the public are still free. We are still able to, at least now.
Well, not in
purchase
Scotland.
books. I mean, not in Scotland, they've got their own problems. But, you can still actually trade information, and this is an example of it. I don't know how long he'll last on Amazon before they kill him.
I mean, fair play. I wouldn't be surprised if they take that off. And also, I must point out as well that sadly, Amazon do have basically a countersurgency going on within them with their Glamazon department, who are like the pro-LGB alphabet mafia people.
They've got all kinds of
repeatedly tried to get books taken off of the site. So if they get more influence, we will not expect to see this sort of stuff come up anymore. But it is on there right now.
My point is about Amazon. My point is about the fact that look how well this can still sell, even with no assistance. I mean, what social media is he posting on that's mainstream?
I mean, Getter's not that mainstream at the moment, so...
He's not, because he's banned. I mean, that's the point. It's like he's not on any of the massive accounts instead. He's only on Getter, so you'll have to find him on Getter, of course, as you mentioned. So go do that. But the last thing I wanted to end on in regards to the Intersectional Conquest, specifically of the UK today, but globally, of course, is I found this out, which is the World Conference Against Racism. And I found this whilst I was reading Douglas's new book, The War on the West, and it's really funny, so I thought I'd end on this. So some folks got together in the UN and were like, maybe we should have a conference against racism. And this was in the 70s, so they thought, okay, South Africa exists. Good idea. Let's do it. So they did for those years in which they were like, don't you know apartheid is bad? Yes, it is bad. Good meeting, everyone. Let's leave. And that seems pretty standard of the UN for many a decade. And then South Africa wasn't a thing anymore. And then it got to the 2000s, and they were like, what do we do now?
Let's make some problems.
Yeah, so they decided to make up some and then also just engage in rampant anti-Semitism because, it
always gets there.
It's the UN. So they're saying here the 2001 meeting was marked by clashes over the Middle East and legacy of slavery. I'll note here, Douglas mentions the clashes about the Middle East and slavery were only about European slavery of Africans. Arab slavery of Africans and Europeans, not mentioned. Not something that should be given for reparations.
Just to point it out, there's a reason that the legacy of slavery is not as visible over there, that there's not as many black and white people walking out. It's because they castrated them all.
But there's no conversation of it either.
No, of course there isn't.
In this example, they did also enslave loads of Europeans. I mean, the Barbary pirates going up. I think it's 250,000 in total that they took.
A ridiculous number, yeah.
0 times it was mentioned. 0 times anyone thought about even asking for reparations. What would that even look like? We're going to ask the Algerians for it? Like, what does that mean?
I think it was David Starkey, when he got cancelled, was pointing out, you can't call transatlantic slavery a genocide because, look, there's still so many over here. But what he left out that could have added some nice context was, the Middle East could be considered a literal genocide because they're buying all of them and then they're literally preventing them from reproducing.
Yeah. Sterilization en masse with a knife. But there's also the point that was raised in here, oh my god, the West must give reparations in this conference. And Douglas makes the point, which is just like, well, it doesn't make friggin' sense either. Because, this is true, which is just reparations were paid by the British in cash, in which that we freed all the slaves with cash. and then we went around policing the world,
Well,
paying in cash to do it.
The argument against that will be that we paid the slave owners the cash.
So what?
I know. The point is we got their freedom.
But it's not just that. We then paid for the whole world to no longer engage in that practice with the East Africa Squadron, which I believe Douglas makes a point. It was, what was it? 40% of the government spending was on that at one point, just to deal with the payments for slaves and to fund the ending of the slave trade. Whereas the Americans also did, in blood, frankly. I'm sick of this argument that the Americans haven't paid reparations. Because Douglas makes the point, it was like, well, okay, let's say we do reparations. Okay, if you're a descendant of a northerner family, do you pay less? Because your family fought to abolish it? And if you're a southern family, do you pay more? I mean, how do you take that into account? And of course, you can't, because no one's got the records at this point to even check, frankly. And then there's obviously that the Americans therefore paid in blood. However, the conference continued without getting to any of those questions. And they say it coincided with attacks on Israel and anti-Israeli demonstrations at an unparalleled conference of non-governmental organizations. Canada, followed by the United States and Israel, ended up walking out midway because of the level of anti-Semitism. They were just like, oh boy, we're leaving. Like, conference against racism, how did that go? Also in the conference, African countries led by Nigeria and Zimbabwe and African-American NGOs wanted individuals to apologize for each of the countries' responsibility for slavery and recognition of as a crime against humanity and reparations to be called as such. That included Robert Mugabe, who was in the process of butchering white farmers, but wanted Britain to pay reparations for slavery being racist. That is very much a sensible place. It has also included the Canadian delegate, denouncing Canada for its treatment of First Nation people. He was paid by the Canadian government to do that. Which, okay, yep, literally on their dime. Fidel Castro was applauded as the most democratic country on earth and leader of such. Fantastic. And the Organization of African Unity demanded reparations from the American government for the slaughter of Tutsis by Hutus in Rwanda. Make that make sense. Hutus murder Tutsis in Rwanda in 1994. The Americans are responsible for that. Again, conference against racism. And the Americans are probably left at that point anyway. But then they had another conference in 2009. Canada, Israel, and the United States decided not to turn up to this one.
Probably reasonable.
It's going to be a lot of talking about Happy Merchant memes, aren't there? And later that day, about 40 delegates had to walk out during the Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's speech on Israel. Germany decided not to turn up to that one either because they thought it might look bad.
Listen, we've got some history with this stuff, okay? We don't need to be seen with this.
Just Mahmoud's like, yeah, you know the Jews? That guy knows what I'm talking about. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here. And then in 2021, the conference against racism continued, except it was boycotted by the entire West, who were just like, we're not taking part.
This is just a joke.
Yeah, and there you have it. I mean, there's the intersectionals in their own conference, and it gives us a future, or at least a glimpse into what an intersectional world order would look like. You know, like a Chinese world order or American world order, and we have it there in the sense of just endlessly happy merchant memes and demanding that white people go extinct, presumably. But there you are. There's the intersectional conquest that has happened in Britain and presumably will be continuing throughout the world. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as this live book club from Patricia McCormick on the A Human Manifesto. And if you want to follow what else Harry's putting out, you can follow him on Getter at Harry Lotus Eater on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.